Okay, the next question is from Monica, and she asks, I can't open, relax and share my heart with my partner, but I can quite easily do so with strangers and my colleagues at work. Why is it so hard to be intimate with those I love the most? It's a great question, and it's one that I've studied for years actually. And I have something to say about this. This is an area that I've done a lot of research and work, and I've had this experience myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about. This is so natural and common. 99% of people follow this pattern and have this experience to some degree, maybe worse than others. And there's this thing called Lenz Law. Lenz Law, Len is a guy who works in Ashland, Oregon as a psychotherapist who spent his life studying how we defend against intimacy. And the basic law is this: the closer we get to what we want, and the closer we get, and the more we receive and let in, we begin to reach a cutoff point where it's not safe to let in anymore. So there's only a certain amount of love, there's only a certain amount of intimacy, a certain amount of the good stuff in life that we can actually embrace and let in before we cut it off and say no, and we begin to defend against letting in too much wellness, too much abundance, too much love, etc., etc., etc. So of course the people we end up being in relationship with are people we love, and therefore the trigger of Lenz Law is so much more powerful than friends, because friends are risk-free, and strangers and work colleagues, there's no emotional risk, there's no real abandonment and sense of hurt and loss risk there. Maybe a little bit, but it's nowhere near compared to the key you've given your partner to your heart. So of course when you are open to being more hurt, you become more careful about how you open yourself up to that hurt. And that's why relationships of the deepest intimacy can be quite fragile and volatile if there's too much insensitivity from either partner. So that Lenz Law is something that is born in each of us. Now, why do we do that? Well, it usually comes from a lack of safety. And that is triggered by a rupture in childhood bonding, often when we were young. There was some, may not have just been a single event, it could be just the general energy of our family was one of an emotional desert. Perhaps we weren't really felt and tuned into or got as children. Our family did the best they could. They may have provided for us physically and gave us good education, etc. But there was just devoid of emotion. There wasn't a lot of intimacy displayed by our parents with each other, and they didn't really give an emotional warmth to you or the children. And what that does, it creates a sense of disconnect between the child and its environment. And that disconnect is usually so painful to feel, and it's all unconscious, by the way. It's an unsettled feeling, but it's often so deep that the child begins to defend against feeling the disconnection between it and its primary caregivers, its parents and its surroundings. So it develops strategies to disconnect from that disconnection. And therefore it says, okay, when I'm open to receiving love, the love isn't there. So I now need to protect myself from feeling this pain of not being loved when I'm completely open. So we learn to close and we learn to defend. We learn great strategies and games and manipulations and techniques to stay out of our heart and to stay out of feeling open. Because in the moment we go into our openness, we go back to that state of, is it safe to open my heart? Because when I did this when I was very, very young, I didn't receive the love that I needed, because there was a rupture in bonding. And I said, we're not talking about intensive abuse here. I mean, 99% of people experience an emotional desert, or the opposite, emotional volatility, which means you're in a family, and because your parents or one of your parents didn't really know how to digest his own emotion, he would suddenly go into a rage, or they would fight a lot, and you would become in the middle of it, and it would be very unsafe for you to kind of be in that space. So either way, whether it was an absence of emotion or an escalated environment of emotion, either way it creates a rupture, because there's no safety. Because there's a certain program that's built into your deepest, oldest part of your brain. It's a bonding program. And when you're younger, you needed to have this bonding program activated, where your parents could just hold you, gaze into your eyes, and tell everything's going to be okay, and that there was a safe environment. And you needed that for the first few years consistently. And any rupture and any disturbance in that primary bonding program would cause you to disconnect and cause you to activate another program that is more addictive, because addictions fill the hole that was left by the lack of bonding. So when you don't feel love, you replace the love and that emptiness with addictions, whether that be orgasm, masturbation, working, TV, shopping, chocolate, spending money that you don't have, talking and talking and talking without pause, etc., etc., etc. There's hundreds and hundreds of addictions or distractions, or there's just loads of stuff like that. So that's the why. That's the why, and it explains why we can't often open with the people we love the most. Now, then the question comes, well, what do we do about that? So, well, there's lots we can do. Again, my entire Accelerated Awakening retreat, the 4-day event, is a process by which we reawaken the right side of our brain through the practice of connecting to deep, deep safety in our physiology, our energy and our emotions, so that we can actually reconnect to love again, to really fully know what it feels like to love ourselves and to love others. And it's done through, and it's not a simple, tangible process. There's no technique that I can share with you and say, well, do this or do that, and then you'll suddenly have it. It's not a quick fix like that. Marnia Robinson, however, she created this wonderful book on the topic of creating good strategies to reactivate that bonding program through non-sexual touch with your partner. A lot of relationships end up going into mechanical sexual relationships. So one of the ways which actually creates a deeper chasm in this problem, it actually makes it worse. It doesn't bring people together. It actually causes an increase in separation. So what she developed was some powerful ways as adults in relationship to actually connect intimately without that sexual goal-orientated orgasmic part attached to it. So it's about reconnecting and re-establishing the bond that was never created when you were younger, but establishing it again in the present moment with your partner. And it's really quite wonderful, so I recommend you look into that. So with that, I hope that gave you a little bit of insight as to the why in terms of your question. If you enjoyed this, please leave a comment below. Please share this with your friends, and if you want to know more about our events, home study programs around relationships and that, just go to loverelationshipsandyou.com. All the best, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.